says it's preparing to live stream and it's going across. Okay, looks like it's working. Still loading.
Well, I'm really excited about doing this. That's for sure. It seems like we're already live. I'm getting a message that we are on.
We're up.
Yeah, which is great. I'm really thrilled to. Sorry about the delay, everybody. Just a few little technical difficulties, of course, as always in this world of technology that we're all very much a part of right now. I'm Devin Carney, Artistic Director for Kansas City Ballet. And tonight is our Dance Speaks, our last one of our season. And this one focuses on the last 6 films of the year that we are presenting under the title of New Moves, the broadcast series. And we have already released 3, and we have 3 more to go. So we're right smack in the middle of this second round of films. And I am so thrilled to have so many wonderful artists here tonight to talk a little bit about the experience of either being filming or choreographing these works. They're really exciting works, and they're all extremely unique because, of course, you have an incredibly highly talented group of choreographers and cinematographers involved. It's been quite an experience so far working in this realm of the digital world, and we have released several films already. And I'm just going to do a quick rundown of the films that have been released, where they were and who choreographed them, leading up to our guests that are here tonight. We started back on February 18th, presenting a single work every week, every Thursday at 7 p.m. And we'll continue to do so until May 20th. We presented works at the Nelson Atkins Museum by Courtney Knitting, at the Kemper Museum of Contemporary Art by James Kirby Rogers, the Nerman Museum of Contemporary Art by Carolyn Dahm, Belger Craneyard Studios by Marika Brussel, the Kansas City PBS Television Studios by Helen Pickett, the Kansas City Museum by Margaret Mullins, Kaufman Center for the Performing Arts Lobby by Price Sudars, who's with us again tonight. Charlotte Street Foundation is the one that where we began our second set of works with Christopher Costantini, who is with us this evening. Thank you, Christopher, for being here. The American Jazz Museum by Cameron Thomas, who is with us tonight. The Gem Theater, which is created by Emily Mistretta, who is with us, of course, tonight. The World War I Museum is one that has not been released yet and will be tomorrow at 7 o'clock on our website by Price Sudarth. And then the following week at Union Station by Yuri Yanowski, and then concluding with the Kansas City Arts Institute by Ben Needham-Wood, who is with us as well. This has been an incredible journey, I have to say, and one that I'm quite grateful for, that we've had the opportunity to continue to work, right? I mean, to be able to work in the middle of a pandemic has been an exciting and substantial experience to have that opportunity. So tonight is just an opportunity to talk with these wonderful creative artists about the experience. So I'd love to just get started by asking, Christopher Costantini, this was a unique experience, your particular venue that you were at, that being the Charlotte Street Foundation, which is a multidisciplinary arts center. So you had this incredible opportunity, I guess you could say, to film in many different areas within the building, which I think, you and Chris Burrow took quite a wonderful advantage of. Maybe you could share just a little bit about what that was like going into this place and the collaboration process with Chris on this. And maybe then, Chris, you could share from your point of view about this as well, of course. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Devin, for that great introduction. Charlotte Street Foundation was an absolutely fantastic space. We were one of the, I think, the earliest outside groups to be able to be in the new space. The space had been recently renovated, but because of the pandemic, hadn't been open to the public. So we were able to take advantage of pretty much all of the rooms in the building. And as you can see, that's actually one of the hallways at Charlotte Street that we took advantage of and we used. Another wonderful thing that we did is we had some artwork hanging on the walls of some of the space that we used. In fact, in one of the shots, there's sort of an installation piece as well. It really is something that's so wonderful to be able to collaborate with artists from other disciplines. And the fact that we created this digital content allowed us to do it. It was really special with Chris's videography and his editing to seamlessly transition certain steps and certain passages of movement from one room into another completely different space in the same building, which is the magic of cinema. And so I think it was a wonderful experience for the artists, but I think it's also a wonderful experience for the public to see dance in a more cinematographic way. When we're used to seeing dance on a stage oftentimes, or perhaps in an installation setting, but seeing it from one angle in one fixed location. And the fact that in a 10-minute work, we can see an entire building of space is really special, I think.
Yeah, Chris, we're talking to the Chris's right now, by the way. So sorry, I'm saying Chris and Chris. Chris Burrow was the cinematographer this particular work with Christopher Costantini, as well as with Cameron Thomas, and as well with, who was the last one? Emily, of course.
Emily, yeah.
Like, so you had this unique experience, Chris Burrow, of in 1 week. This was all done in 1 week. It's a very intensive week for you, I would say, to be able to film these 3 different works. And the challenge, I would think, is creating individuality between these 3 works. And on top of it, you were working with dance for the first time, if I'm not correct. Is that right?
Yeah, you're totally correct. Like I before this, I had never actually, I'm sorry to say, guys, been to a dance performance. So it was definitely quite an experience for the first one. Being so close to you guys was awesome. It was crazy to see, like, just some insane like body control that you guys have. But it was really fun to get to do 3 in 1 week. It was definitely jam-packed, but I don't know if I've had that much fun in a while. So it was really special to work with you guys on that.
Cool. One thing that I really wanted to say I admired about the particular work with Christopher Costantini was, your use of lighting. That particular photograph, actually, that was up a second ago, Christopher, that you were describing, was a hallway. Yeah, if we can go to the one with the hallway. Yes, that one. There is so much lighting going on in that particular moment. Maybe, Chris, you could share a little bit about what that vision was you were trying to look for in that particular shot down that hallway.
So, a couple of days before Chris and I got together, and we all got together at Charlotte Street, I'd actually watched Joker. And so I fell in love with that movie and the color. And Chris and I had walked through the building, and he was like, we want to shoot in this hallway. And it was pretty dark when we were walking through, so I definitely knew we were gonna have to bring some lights in. And I think I asked Chris, I was like, yo, would you be all right if we did something fun? He's like, yeah, sure. Yeah, we can do that. So I brought in a couple tube lights. So you'll see like the blue and then the orange. And then there's actually a light at the end of the hallway coming down towards us too. So
Hmm.
it was a lot of fun to do that. It was really fun to shoot that one.
Yeah, I had a good time watching that. That was quite a setup for that particular moment.
Yeah.
So you worked with two other choreographers. I'd love to actually be able to have a little bit of commentary from them as well, of course. Cameron was Cameron Thomas, who is one of our wonderful performing artists with Kansas City Ballet, as is Christopher Costantini and Emily Mistretta. I'm sorry, I didn't say that earlier, guys. Cameron, I approached Cameron about doing a work for this incredible series that we've been putting on. And I wouldn't say he had a lot of time to get ready for this, right? But what was exciting was that Cam and I had been talking about the potential of doing some choreography at some point in the future. And boom, this opportunity came up. So, I thought, let's just go with it. And Cameron was quite excited about the process. What's really exciting about this particular film is that it's his very first choreographic effort. And I think it came off incredibly well. And that was at the American Jazz Museum. So maybe, Cam, you might want to talk a little bit about like how you came up with the music, because it was pretty cool music you chose, that being jazz music, and, the challenges perhaps, or the opportunities of that particular venue.
Absolutely. Well, when Devin approached me with the idea, he had the Jazz Museum in mind, and the idea of big band jazz and connecting it to Kansas City. And a lot of things, fortunately enough for me, fell into place soon after that way. I approached Ramona to see if she had any ideas about jazz music that would be, frankly, more interesting than a lot of the free stock jazz music that I found on the internet. And she directed me towards this wonderful archive of music at UMKC, some of which the company had actually used before in a production called Hey Hey Kansas City many years ago under Bill Whitener. That is also where the costumes came from. So many ideas were so fit to the original concept of big band jazz in the Jazz Museum that the movement was in response to a lot of the sort of the parameters that we were under. It was a small space, it was a slippery space, it was a bright space. The music is jazzy and funky and groovy. And so the movement kind of was born out of all of those things. And I think the biggest challenge was getting enough movement, enough action, despite the small space, and really being able to connect with the camera more so than just create a production. We weren't going to be doing any like gigantic crystal pipe, 50 people in the corps de ballet, making some exciting movement puzzle. There was not really any room for any of that. Honestly, there's rarely more than 3 dancers that are ever on the camera, and one of them is losing an arm and the other one losing a foot and something like that. So what I tried to do, and what Chris captured so amazingly, was more personal, more fun, and a response to everything, all of the conditions that led up to the moment. And it came together because of all those things very quickly. We even lost a few days due to snow, and we were first up on the film list. But because the dancers were so responsive, and because it was so limiting, like if I'm only choreographing a solo, that eats time fairly quickly. And I was really happy with how it turned out, and it was so exciting, and I was grateful to do it. Yeah.
One of the fun things to watch on that particular day, Cameron, was Chris Burrow fly straight down the middle of all the dancers. For somebody who had not been with dancers ever before, and this was this was your first day on set with dancers, and that there's one of the shots where it kind of, I think it was that one slide that was up where he went all the way through the dancers, turned around and came all the way back. Yeah, see how there's a corridor there that you could imagine. Well, he just went ahead and went for it, right, Chris?
Yeah, it was definitely nerve-wracking. Like we had to like go through that a couple times, and I asked Cam, I was like, "Do you think anyone's gonna kick me or the camera?"
I was like, "No, you'll be great. We'll be fine.
You'll be all right."
Yeah.
We'll get through. So, but you guys are professional. I think you kind of know where I'm at. You can like not hit me when I'm going through. But there it was funny enough because there was a time that day that I was like, I don't remember who it was, but I was really close to them and I didn't know a kick was coming. And it was almost a
Oh
blind
yeah.
kick. And she like got, and I was watching the video, she got like this close to the camera, but it
Yeah,
looked cool. So
I don't think we ended up using the take, but we were about 3 inches from, a $10,000 or more camera lens or something that we just wouldn't have had anymore. I think it was in that first movement, that very same one.
yeah.
Also, this is unrelated, but Chris sells himself short. He had some schmoobs on the day on the set. You were dancing around so much. The energy was so high. It was so fun.
Good fun.
Yeah, I mean, I got to tell you, Cameron, that I've said this before, and I'm not shy about saying it again. This was your very first shot at choreography, and I mean, it'd be one thing to do it live, right? It'd be one thing to do it knowing, well, here's my theater, here's my box, and I'm going to put a piece in this box, right? But the unpredictability of filming, and not really knowing how that day is going to run, it's a really interesting work, given the limitations of the space. And I really got to say, you really pulled one out there for your first time up to bat. So I really want to say congratulations to you, man. You did it.
Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah. So you've got those two interesting places, and then you have this place called the Gem Theater, which it was really cool when Emily approached me about, I said, hey, I want to do a piece, and she was interested in that idea, and I kind of had this sneaky suspicion she might want to be in a theater. So when she asked about a theater, I said, well, guess what? I've got a theater for you. And this is an incredible old theater, one of the oldest theaters in the city. And as it turns out, it was the only film out of 13 films that was done in an actual theater space, which was moving in many kind of ways. I got to say, just to step into a theater and be on a stage again was it was great. And it was meaningful, and it really sort of inspired, I think, everybody that was there, right? Emily inspired everybody that, the future is coming and we're going to get back on stage. But, it was a really theatrical work, obviously, because you're in a theater, but also because there was some very interesting collaborations between Chris Burrow and the lighting guys. And, you also had live music involved with a musician from Boston who came to Kansas City just to do this work. Whew, there's so much to talk about here. I'd rather you talk about it than me. So Emily, how did you come up with this concept? Let's start there. It's a very interesting concept, and the movement is fantastic. What was the process like of dreaming up this work? And then also the collaborative process with Chris Burrow, your cinematographer.
Yeah, I don't know where the thought came from to have it in a theater. I think we were having like a discussion with dancers because I was trying to come up with the concept for the piece. And when you came to me and said, yeah, we actually have the theater for you, everything kind of fell into place. It's kind of like what's my building block for the piece. And I knew I kind of had like a vision for the feeling for the piece that I wanted. And I called my friend Anna Stromer because I was kind of struggling to find the music that I was looking for. And I told her, oh, I found this violin piece, but I think it would be really cool with a viola. And I don't know if you'd be open or interested. And she was completely on board. And she created this score from scratch with like 3 different movements. And it all happened very rapidly. Yeah. And so in terms of with Chris, because it's in the theater, it's almost like a little limited. You're not in a museum space. Like, how do you make the theater seem a little bit more interesting? You don't have different rooms that you're working with. And so I kind of wanted to use the parts of the theater that are filled with audience, hopefully, usually, and also to kind of give the dancers perspective, something that we think of as very commonplace, to see behind the wings and behind the curtain and all of those entrances and exits that we're always making. So I kind of wanted to flip it on its head so the audience could actually see what we see. And so working with Chris, we were able to kind of have the audience have the opposite perspective. They were able to have the dancer's perspective. And yeah, I just wanted to kind of bring us back to the theater. I think as a dancer, I miss it. I knew that the dancers I was working with miss it. So it was nice to have that feeling of being on stage again.
Maybe you could talk about the title. I love the idea behind the title, Velvet Vacancy. I thought that was a very interesting choice for the work.
Mm-hmm.
Very creative, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, it was about this vacant theater. And so I knew I wanted vacancy in the title somehow. And then for me, the velvet was kind of like the velvet seats and the velvet backdrop. And the dancers were wearing red masks to kind of mirror the velvet seats and everything. So yeah, I knew I wanted it to have something to do with that. I was also, it was almost going to be called Mask Charades as well, because I knew that I wanted to kind of play with the idea of the mask and the fact that this is a reality we're in right now, that the theaters are empty and we're wearing these masks. And so I knew I wanted it to be relevant. But that's kind of where the idea for Velvet Vacancy came from.
Yeah, I love that. It's very creative. I think it's really cool. And you get the sense of a theater just in the velvet vacancy. The "v" in there is really, I love it.
Yeah.
I love the whole work as well, of course. What was it like working, with a cinematographer? That I think, unless you can correct me, and I might be mistaken, I'm sorry if I am, but I think this was your first dance film that you solo created yourself. So what was that experience like of working with Chris? I mean, you seemed and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were really with Chris for a lot of these shots, which I thought was really cool, the way that you were right there with him and watching in the little screen, his camera screen, and checking out the shot and following with him the whole time. I thought that was a really, you were very there. That slide right there shows exactly what I'm talking about. You seem to have no fear about just going in and directing this show. So
well, Chris was helping me along with that. He was very he really wanted me to get my vision across, and he really wanted me to direct him. So he was very open to that, and in fact, like, telling me to do that. So I really appreciated that, because that's a tricky thing to figure out how it's going to translate. I have such a clear concept, but I also respect the art form, and I wanted to have his opinion, and so that it could really be like a true marriage between the two. So it's not like, oh, you couldn't really see the dance, or the other way around, where like the cinematography was outshining the dance. And I really think that it was such a combination. But yeah, working with Chris was great. And also just the filming thing, that is such a cool, I really enjoyed it. It takes dance to the next level for me. It felt like you could really get in there close to the dancers and see things in a whole new way that I think maybe sometimes lost on the stage. And we also I struggled a little bit too with dance showing up a little bit flat sometimes when it's on the screen. And so I think Chris's use of getting in close, but also not so close that you can actually see what's happening. And also using the musician as a way to feel the energy for the dance was really helpful, so that I feel like it jumps out of the screen at you. Which is what I was wanting. You wanted to feel like you're on stage dancing.
Chris, what do you, how did you approach Emily's work differently than the other two choreographers that you worked with?
So Emily, like the first time Emily and I hopped on call, like I got like so excited because she, I mean, Chris too, and Cameron both, they kind of like had an idea for what they wanted, but I'd say like Emily most of all had like really mapped it out. Like this is exactly what, you know, she wanted it to feel like, especially, so one of the reasons I wanted her to direct me like that is because she knows the dance better than anyone. She knows where I need to be for the best shot better than anyone. And I was looking at the clip. We had almost an 8-minute clip.
Yeah.
And so I can't remember all the blocking for that. Like with Chris's project, it was much easier. Chris, we had like 30-second clips, so it was easy to figure out where I need to be. I don't have to remember too much. But with Emily's, when there's like 8 minutes of dancing that we want to capture in one go, my mind can't remember everything. So it was nice that Emily knows the dance. She was able to direct me. And I think you mentioned the screen that we were looking through, Devin. I just thought it was funny to mention that in several of these takes, my screen's battery actually died midway through. And so Emily and I were blind, and I'm just kind of pointing the camera like,
Chris is like, I'm blind, I'm blind, I'm blind. I'm like, just keep going, just keep going.
It's so funny. If you listen to the original audio, you just hear panic. It's so funny. But yeah, it was incredible to work with Emily, and we had Austin up on Spotlight all day. And that was something I was like pretty excited about. Was and Emily and I went and saw the theater, and I didn't think we were gonna have any of the house lights. I didn't think we are gonna have a spotlight. I thought I was gonna have to bring so much. But we had that, and we got to work with Connor, who was our lighting guy there. And I was incredibly happy with how it went.
Yeah, having that, having the theater light, being able to turn that on was certainly a big plus. That's a perfect example of how wonderful it was to have that available to us. And I want to say thank you to the theater for their willingness to give us a shot at having all that technology there. Emily, looking at that particular photograph, it reminded me, why did you put dancers in the theater space, in the seats? You know, what caused you to put them out there instead of having everybody on the stage itself? As you can see right here.
Yeah, I wanted to take advantage of the fact that we never dance in a theater without anybody in it. Which is incredible, but also it's kind of this cool world that is just ours in that moment. So to be able to utilize the seats, and that was a whole lighting thing that Chris had to do. He had to uplight with whatever we had so that the dancers could have lighting on them. But yeah, I wanted it to be this kind of imaginative, dark theater, mysterious world. And I just loved the velvet behind the dancers as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted them to use the space that's normally occupied.
It brought a very dramatic sort of effect to the entire film. I love that the idea that you were willing to break that wall and go into the space itself where audiences sit. I think that was a great idea. And I love the lighting, Chris. I mean, I got to tell you both, all three of these works, the lighting was just so fun. The creativity of bringing some very unusual types of lights to each shoots. It was really great. I thought it was really fun. I have to share something, Chris. I just think this is, before we move on to Cody and his two gentlemen, that was really fun to watch you and Austin pull off. And that was at Cameron's location when you were in the Ella Fitzgerald area.
The spot.
The spot, exactly. The spot. You said it. I'm like, okay, this is a pure MacGyver moment. For anybody who knows, MacGyver is an old TV show where this guy makes incredible things out of the most common items. So you had this LED screen, right? An LED panel, right? Very bright. But you wanted a spotlight effect. I think I bet you would be able to share this better than me.
Yeah, so essentially we had the square panel, but we didn't want it to be square. And so I had tinfoil in my backpack. And so we literally, I think we spent, and you'll have to tell, did we spend like 15 minutes just
Yes.
taping that tinfoil around that?
Yeah, it was a
That-
fair amount of time.
That was
Yeah.
the hardest part of the entire day, was getting that tinfoil to look like a spotlight. Hardest part.
I thought somebody was like sneaking a late game PB&J or something. Like, what is happening? Like, what? And they were like, oh, they're making a spotlight.
No, where are the video guys?
Right. I was totally like standing there going, what are they doing with that light over there? It was, and then it all came together,
I think you did ask. You're like, what are you guys up to?
I know. It was great. But I just love that about the arts, about, you figure out a way to make it happen. And that's, the entire process of all these films is us figuring out a way to make it happen in
Mhm.
spite of the craziness of the world around us, to still be creative and create art and be able to share that with our public has just been such an exciting experience. And, Chris, I want to just say thank you, for jumping in, never having worked with dance before, and doing such an incredible job with these 3 works. And I have to say, just, one of the most exciting parts of this whole process has been working with the film industry in Kansas City and working with individuals like Chris and Cody, and Johanna Brooks, and Brad Austin. Yes. It's just, there's many people that were involved in this, cinematographers, and, it's been exciting to have a chance to really expand our horizons as an art form that is dance, to see that we can incorporate and collaborate with other arts disciplines and do it well. And no, you don't need a lot of experience working in dance. You both are incredible cinematographers and photographers, and you both have a great eye. And, you had a good subject. So, hey, how can you go wrong, right?
I might just
Yes, Cameron, please say
tack
something.
on to that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to thank Chris and marvel at his ability to interpret my nonsense into meaningful differences in light. My piece was divided into 4 movements, and I'd basically just give him a thematic word, like, this is the sultry one, this is the happy one, this is and the differences and the ideas that immediately came to his mind. And you came prepared with lights, haze, tinfoil, to make all of that happen. So I just want to say thank you. And that's one of the more amazing parts about working with film. I don't speak film, for lack of a better way to say that. I know nothing about film, but you were able to take our vision and turn it into that. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, excellent. And I know that, Emily, you feel the same way. I mean, geez, what the 2 of you pulled off was substantial, and it was all in one day. I mean, all 3 of these films, all of the films, except Ben's, were shot in a single day, which is incredible to think that the kind of work that was able to be produced in that short amount of time. It's excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you always think too that you come as prepared as possible,
Mhm.
but there's always something that you're not expecting. And so Chris did such a great job of
Yeah.
work, it's showbiz, and like working with what you've got and making it work. And yeah, so very thankful for that.
Yeah, totally. So I want to shift a little bit here, and head over to Cody. And ask you, Cody, you as well, tell me if I'm wrong, right? This was your first time working with a film as well. Um, so not film, dance. um, what was it like when, when I called you and we talked for a few minutes about the idea of working with dance? What did you think when you first thought about that?
It was surprising, but a very cool opportunity. Um, like Chris, I also have to shamefully admit that I haven't seen any performances myself, so it was a lot of just going with the flow and learning on the fly just
Mhm.
how spectacularly talented everyone is at doing these moves that made me lose my breath just watching them. So um, yeah, it was really exciting and also nerve wracking, but brought a lot of exciting energy um, to break up a period of not doing a whole lot of new things. So I really appreciate the opportunity.
Well said. Yeah, that's great to know too. Um, this particular shot right here was being filmed at World War One Museum and Memorial, and this was a really special location for us. Um, and this was Price Sudarth's work that was being filmed here. Um, and as you can see, the dancers are standing what looks like pretty much in a poppy field. Well, this is a very famous field it's in the museum, but it's not accessible to the public. And Matt Naylor, who is the director of the World War One Museum, they were very willing to let us use that space down there, which I was totally surprised about. Maybe Price, you might want to talk a little bit about how you envision the work based on the reality that we were going to be able to use this very unique and special area and be in it where usually no one can get to.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's an absolutely gorgeous location that's kind of like nothing I've ever seen before. Well, I still haven't seen it. I've never been there. So I've only seen it through an iPad. I think you saw one image. I'm an iPad on a stick, which that's the only way I've ever seen that. Yeah, there I am. Yeah.
Price on a stick.
Yep. Being very intense apparently in that moment. But yeah, so I never seen anything quite like that. It has a really striking, very emotional quality to it, just kind of feeling it. But I was also struck by, you and I did a walk through Devon, where you were filming your phone or on your phone the whole space and getting into that area. There's a whole series of ladders and secret passageways that you have to go through, which just it reiterated the fact that this is a secret space. People can see it, but never like this. And so I definitely wanted to sort of have something that felt very intimate when we're down there, something that felt almost like you're not supposed to be seeing it. It should feel very special, very quiet, contemplative. It doesn't necessarily explain itself. But and those are pretty much the like vague words I gave Cody for how we could capture stuff that's down there. And you'll see tomorrow. I think it was really successful. There's a lot of seeing actually Christopher dances down there in like the central duet of the work. But you get all of these really nice hidden moments of people dancing in and out of focus, hidden behind the poppies, and kind of feels like a dream because it really looks like a dream. That's literally just Georgia standing there on a break, but it looks like a dream. That's like a movie set. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous otherworldly place. And I wanted something to feel as special as that space is. And I think we did a pretty good job of capturing that right there.
Oh yeah, for sure. And above that space is a floating bridge that's mainly plexiglass for a floor, you know, which I thought was a really interesting concept to be above it and in it, you know, which Cody was that a bit of a challenge just photographically to capture that essence of those two very uh, different types of spaces, one on top of the other?
I think it provided a lot of opportunity to kind of get creative with how we came at it. I think the real challenge of the whole shoot was sorting out how we were going to dance around the poppies. Originally, I think we had kind of wanted to see if we could dance on the field itself, but it's actually like a sort of styrofoam-esque
Yeah.
substance, so that wouldn't quite work. But seeing how the dancers adapted to, you know, moving in these 3 foot wide, pretty much alleys along the sides of the poppy field was probably, I think, the biggest challenge. Something they rose to immediately and um, dispelled any fears I had about it working out. But yeah, the sky bridge above was really cool. We could use actually the reflection of the glass floor to capture the monument that a lot of people know the memorial for. So I think it provided a lot of creative opportunity for sure.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Cody, about the reflection. I really appreciate those moments. They were beautiful. And it was very intentional. Like, and when the film comes out tomorrow, we're talking about things that haven't been seen yet. But you could tell it was very intentional when you would include the reverse mirror image of the dancers in the reflection, and you would allow that space below their feet to see the exact opposite, you know, movement of the dancer below and above, as well as the architecture above. So I thought that was a really great idea, and you certainly capitalized on it and made the most use out of that, which was great.
Oh yeah, and I have to tip my hat extremely to Price, who edited the piece um, very very well. I thought that was, I got a glimpse of the rough draft, and it looks spectacular. So great job.
Cool.
Thanks.
Nate Price, there you go, from a professional photographer, cinematographer. Woo! You made it.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it was really exciting to edit it. I've done a few films this year. We actually, Devin, you and I were talking earlier this week, and I last August I hadn't done any films, and I actually was sort of I was sort of not interested in doing any films. And since August, you tallied it up. I've done 14
Yeah.
films, and sort of on all sides, I've been just the iPad on a stick. I've filmed, I've edited, I've done pretty much every little like variation that's possible. For this one being my 14th one, I really wanted to get back and edit it because it felt like it's like the final piece of delivering that product. And as a choreographer, you know, you create it in the studio, but then you mount it on stage, and the 80% of the work as a choreographer happens in the last 3 days when you're putting it on stage and you're bringing all the pieces together. And I really wanted to sort of replicate that process via my computer and piece this work together, it was interesting editing someone else's footage, which was really cool though, because it was a different perspective of what I had made, which is it's important to have, because we get fixated on this is what I want, this is what I want to see, this is what I want to see, and then you forget what other people might see or get out of it. And so it felt collaborative, even in my editing, when I was looking at what Cody and Sam had captured, sort of still felt like a conversation, even when it was just like me working alone, which is really, really cool.
Cool. Ben, and Price, both of you guys had the uniquely different experience other than what Emily, Christopher, and Cameron had, which was doing this, creating the entire work without ever being in our city. Ben, you've choreographed from the San Francisco area, and Price from the Seattle area. Maybe Ben, you might want to share, and obviously Price, you can too, if you like. What's that like? I respect you both for your desire to do it, and your willingness to create work in a very different sort of environment. Was it better? Was it worse? What do you think, Ben?
This was such an awesome opportunity, Devin, and I'm just like super grateful for it. One of the things coming into this process that was really that I was hyper aware of is that this is actually the first fully Zoom process I've done, which is, I think, different from a lot of choreographers during this pandemic year. I think most people had to revert to that really early, and I've done a lot of teaching via Zoom, but this was the first full choreographic production that was developed that way. And I've been hearing all these horror stories about like, oh, it's impossible to like, how do you do a pas de deux? How do you figure out how to like have a real relationship with the dancers or a real sense of connection to them? And there was this, pretty much all the dancers are great. There's one guy who was a total pain. I think his name was Cameron. He just really like had some trouble trying to like bring himself to the space. Which I say 100% in jest, because he was super fierce every single time we stepped in that studio. I'm pretty sure you would casually do 7 or 8 pirouettes just on the side in your sneakers whenever there was a lull moment. So, anywho, anecdotes aside, the awesome thing about this process is it forces us to kind of reassess how we're gauging the work, how are we approaching our creativity. When we are no longer able to rely on the same presence that we're so familiar with being in the studio. And I think that the biggest thing that came down to is how are we communicating? And what I was really grateful for working with all these artists that you have within your company, Devin, is that everyone was so generous, everyone was so receptive, and there was just a great camaraderie within the group that allowed everyone to really connect. And that's been one of the biggest things that I've heard across the board from anyone who's worked with this organization, is that the camaraderie that is held within the artists of Kansas City Ballet is second to none. And so that I think made this process super fulfilling. And I couldn't have been more grateful to have these artists to create with through that process.
Well, I mean, it was really cool to watch it come together. And that slide, by the way, shows the costume choice colors was a brilliant choice of colors that ironically perfectly matched the environment. So that was well done. Well, maybe not that particular environment. That one was a little bit more chaotic, that tapestry in the background. But that room, yes, thank you. That room, the colors just went so well with all the wood in the background and on the floor. So that was really cool.
The binder shot. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Cameron.
I was just going to share the anecdote of, I think I opened and closed that binder like 15 or 20 times. Just because you're like, not quite, a little faster, a little slower. But it was funny. That shot that they're getting right there is just me opening the binder and closing it again for the beginning of the second movement. But it was, I'm no good at binder opening.
Yeah, it's not really something you rehearse on a daily within your pliés and tendus. Binder opening doesn't quite fall into that same practice repetition. But it was like the color palette for this. I think what's interesting is sometimes within the process, we don't always know where the sparks of inspiration come from, which was kind of the joy in this, is that for me, the first thing, it starts with the venue. And so I was looking at all these recordings, the Devin that you shared, of these different optional spaces within the Institute. And there was something about that sparked this idea of students who are looking at what is the next chapter of this art, which is kind of where we all are right now in this pandemic. We're all having to reassess what it is that we're trying to do. How are we communicating through the art of dance, and how are we delivering that to our communities in a way that's going to have an impact and keep a relevance that will continue to inspire people forward. And so through all these little creative channels of like, okay, here's a location, okay, here are the dancers. There was a moment looking at one of the pictures where I was opening a little cutie orange, and it was like, oh, that smells really good. Oh, can we introduce that scent? Well, no, it's through a film, so we can't literally send everyone an orange, but can we introduce that color palette into it? Okay, how do we develop off of that? And so just like the creative ripple effect that emerges when we are having to disrupt our natural creative patterns, I think can lead to some really interesting moments. And so that was definitely a big influence on this product.
Cool. Price, thank you, Ben. Price, I was wondering, in your particular place with Cody, was there a moment where you both were, or anyone else here, all of you guys, where you really realized, oh, and Emily, you kind of touched on this comment of you come as prepared as you can, right? But things happen, right? Was there a moment in your works where you really realized this isn't going to be what I thought it was going to be, but an idea came forward that made it something uniquely different and exciting and sort of a spur of the moment artistic choice?
This kind of will answer your question before too about working on Zoom. We're used to creating something under these specific guidelines and specific rules that we have for ourselves in a studio space. We understand, the four sides of a theater. We understand those things and we create within those limitations. But then when you take yourself out of the space, you're in your basement on computer, for hours, you're not physically there. Half the time there's a delay. People can't hear you. Your dancers have masks on. Suddenly you have to recreate how you create, and for me, eventually what that meant is I had to learn to let go, letting go of all the problem solving, because somebody has defined choreography as just problem solving. You introduce a problem and then you solve it, and you introduce a problem and then you solve it, and that's what creates something interesting. And I'm replacing my problem solving with trust. For the dancers, Cameron was in my earlier piece, and then Chris was in this most recent one. I start with theme steps so that we can really have a firm basis of what we're doing and what the vocabulary is, and then build from that, which allows for just a shared base knowledge of what we're doing. And then, we can make all these adjustments and talk about the specifics about the pas de deux that we're making for Chris or the solo for Cam. But at the end of the day, the dancers have this idea of where this thing is coming from. And the same is true with Cody. We had a couple meetings, Zoom meetings before we shot anything. And as long as I felt that we were on the same page as far as what we were trying to accomplish or where this idea came from, I was really comfortable and excited to kind of let go. Because, I had no idea what the dimensions were. And literally Cody came into the studio and watched this section of the duet. And he was like, this is really beautiful. It looks great. They had gone from wall to wall in your big studio. And he was like, oh, just an FYI, something to bear in mind. You have 3 feet. That's it. like no space at all. But trusting that, the dancers knew what we were trying to accomplish. They understood the concepts. Cody knew what we were doing. It was kind of out of my hands in a way of, I got to embrace this group of collaborators, and sort of everyone was problem solving at the same time. So of course, at the end of the day, the work ended up being gorgeous and beautiful and more full because we were approaching it with a singular goal, but constantly reinventing to suit the circumstances. Then you don't have the people just struggling through or, fighting against the current to try and achieve something. It's going with it and always keeping in mind what our purpose is. But for me, this whole process has opened me up to this greater level of trust in my collaborators, whether they're dancers or cinematographers or lighting designers or costume designers or composers, really just all getting on board from the beginning and then letting people really flesh out their areas. Because at the end of the day, there's nothing I can do. I'm literally sitting in my basement on a couch watching everything happen. Like, that's it. Like, I would love to help, like Cam was doing a solo in a corridor on carpet. You're trying to figure out which way was front in this corridor that was bending, like trying to do coupe jeté. He's like, I can't help you. I can't do anything. The same thing with Chris and Cody trying to get, the cameras and everything figured out. Like at the end of the day, like I just kind of have to be flexible, which is what really facilitates creating something that I couldn't ever do by myself, which is the point. That's what we're here to do.
Yeah.
So,
well, thank you, Price. Christopher, Mr. Costantini, you had so many different spaces that you went to. You went to spaces I didn't even realize you had gone to because I was doing something else. And it was when I saw the film when I went, oh, they went in that space too. Cool. You must have had some interesting sort of like, let's make something out of this. We're going to figure out a way to make something out of this. Right, Chris and Christopher?
Yeah, when I remember, Devin, you sent me a video walkthrough of Charlotte Street a couple weeks before we were filming, and I saw the recording studio where they do that's sort of a soundproof room where they do podcast recordings and other sorts of things. And I said, yes, we are using that. There's carpet in this room. It's small, but we're going to do it. And we were able to put Georgia's solo in that room. And I know it was a challenge to light because there was so much light pouring into that room. And it was a big challenge for Chris, but I think it came out really well. I think it was such a different space from the big gallery space that we used for the group sections and even the foyer that we used for the pas de deux between Courtney and Georgia. It kind of was a good space to just break up the sequence of shots, which is something that I think is so important, especially with a piece that, every shot was shorter for my piece. And with the sort of the electronic dance music I used, it makes sense to make a faster paced piece with lots of cuts into different spaces. And so, yeah, it was kind of wild to use so many different spots. We used that black box theater space that was wonderfully lit, and then of course that hallway. Yes, that's the black box there. Me and Georgia in that black box space, which I thought was filmed so interestingly too. Really, really close up. It was really special to be able to use so many different perspectives on the work. Something that you couldn't achieve if the work were just presented on stage.
Right. I did want to ask Emily, we're running close to out of time here. Emily, maybe you could talk to, before we're done, I just want to touch on this one important subject, and that is the future. What's going to happen? We've had this wonderful experience to work with fabulous cinematographers. I love you guys, Chris and Cody. And I hope that somehow we collaborate again in the future. I think that there's been some really interesting relationships, connections that have been developed through this. But for dance, for the future of dance, how do you see dance film incorporating itself into, or grafting into, or becoming an element of live performance? A lot of people ask me this. Do you think, hey, your cat finally showed up. Do you think that, that this will replace live performance, And I welcome anybody else's opinion on this, but I just wanted to ask Emily that particularly first.
No, I don't think it will replace live performance, but I hope that it continues to grow into what we do. I think that there's also, I think this was happening before, but there can be more use in a live show of having videography or overlaying images, or kind of developing in that way. And I do hope that we continue to make dance films. I don't see it happening without the live performance at the same time. Like, I don't think one will kill the other type of deal. But I think that I think it definitely brings awareness to our art form, and you get to see it and connect with it on a whole different level. And you get to reach so many other people. So I hope that it continues. But I don't think, I think there will always be something about the live performance that is so enticing that you'll still want to go and see that. Or that's, I hope.
Chris, you have something you want to say? I can tell.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I love like how accessible these videos are for everyone, because I mean I think that's one of the special things about it is, you know, a lot, not some people, you know, can't make it in to see you guys when you perform, and so these videos are so incredibly accessible to everyone, and that's something my family, because I told my family, I was like, guys, watch these, and they've watched them, and a lot of them haven't gone to see dance performances live, but now a lot of them have started to express interest, and they're like, I gotta go in and see some of this stuff, and I was like, yeah, you do. But yeah, I think it's so accessible.
I agree. I think that's one of the most wonderful parts of this whole process is that we are reaching a population that would have never even thought of going to see ballet, you know, or dance in a theater. And as Emily said, I think that it's really cool. It's really connective when you can see dancers up close, which you can't see when you're in a theater. You sit there. I mean, unless you bring your opera glasses, you can't do it. So it's been really beautiful the way you guys, Chris and Cody, have brought us in to the, you know, the close-up action. I love some of the close-up work, Cody, you did in Yuri Yanowski's work that will be shown. It's some really beautiful work with Emily, for instance, as well as Emily is in Yuri's work, as well as James and Kalina. There's some beautiful, interesting close-up work in there, as well as Chris, you did some too in all these different works. I think that makes a big difference. That's Yuri's work that's going to be shown. That's at Union Station. And I just think that it's really exciting to see how we are bringing dance into a more personal experience for our audiences. You know, I see it in the future, Emily, I really do. And, you know, I hope that we can continue to produce them and bring dance to audiences and just to anyone in the world, frankly, because that's what's exciting about this series is that we have been able to present 13 separate works online, and we are having individuals who are watching it from China, from Australia, from Korea, from England, from Scotland, and you know, it's just everywhere, and it's really exciting to realize how far and wide you guys are all being seen and how your works are being appreciated out there. So I applaud every one of you for what you've done. It's a very unique experience, and I know that no one has done what we've done in these last 13 films in terms of collaborating with different cultural arts institutions in our city so that we can really genuinely say we're in this together in the arts. So with that, I think we have to sign off, sadly, because there's all sorts of things to talk about. But tune in next year when we keep picking up our Dance Speaks for the future. But thank you to each and every one of you. Cameron, thank you so much for your work. Price, Ben, fabulous work. I can't wait to see it. It's going to be so exciting. And Price's work. Woohoo. Christopher, awesome. Really, thank you so much. And Mr. Burrow for those 3 amazing films you did. Wow. And Emily, again, such a beautiful work. And those long shots, Chris and Emily, that you did. And I watched them. I was like, whoa, those are long takes. They're great shots. So thank you very much. And Cody for the 2 other works that you did as well with both Yuri and Price. Really awesome work. And I hope that you guys get to see ballet for, you know, the value of it and come see us when we get into the theater and come backstage and say, hey, I know everybody would love to say hello to you both. So thank you, everybody. And thank you for everybody who's watching tonight. Had a great time speaking with everybody here. And I look forward to the future and what it holds for us with dance and film. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.